Hey everyone, and welcome to our regular scheduled content, our show of the week, Digital Foundry Direct. I'm Richard Ledbetter, and joining me to discuss what we've been up to this week and a pretty key topic that we've been kind of thinking about it for a while. It's John Linneman.
Hey Rich, how's it going today?
It's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. What about you?
It's going wonderful. Excited to be here as always. It's been a fun week. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today, though, as always.
But I need closure. I need closure on your twin Famicom. Did you fix it?
Oh, yes, that. I fixed it. It's all good. That was a fun project. So, obviously, I managed to get it for cheap, if I can say. It was $23, right?
What?
But it was broken. That's the thing. It's like, okay, this doesn't work and it's dirty. So Here it is. So, it's fun to take an old console that's been put up for adoption, bring it home with you, care for it, caress it. So yeah, I cleaned it up, restored the Famicom side, easy. Obviously the Famicom disk system side was broken. So what I did actually was sort of obtain another Famicom disk system. And I sort of put the two side by side and kind of went through the calibration process and very carefully sort of tried to figure out what worked on the working unit versus what didn't on the broken unit, because you're really like inserting a little Allen wrench kind of thing through the front of the unit, and it's a pain. But I eventually got that working. Then I also had to desolder and resolder the AV connections because they were very loose and producing bad results.
Wow.
I also fixed the controllers, had to replace some of the rubber inside the controller so the buttons didn't work correctly. Now it works like a champ. It's just kind of a fun little piece to have. So I can play all those Famicom disk system games right from the disk, or regular Famicom games and cartridge. Though for my actual Famicom playing, I usually just use the Analog NT Mini still. Mm-hmm. It's just that's a really great system for that. So, but this is nice to have as well.
Good. Well, I'm kind of happy that there's a happy ending to that story. So what else have you been up to this week? And yeah.
Well, I have something else coming out soon that we can't talk about right now as of when this goes up. So I did do something fun that you'll know about soon.
Right.
But then in addition to that, I spent a lot of time covering and playing the game Blazing Chrome. I think we'll have a video up for that soon. That's basically a Contra style game, if you will. Like this is the Contra sequel I've been waiting for a long time, basically, and it was extremely exciting to play. It turned out really, really good. I was very impressed. And then what impressed me more is I randomly reached out to the lead developer on it, just on Twitter. As you do, send a message, hey, you want to talk about your game, how you made it? And he turned out to be just super nice and talkative and shared all kinds of development assets with me and just sort of, shared their process of building a game like this and the sort of restrictions that they placed upon themselves to ensure that it felt like a real period appropriate sort of arcade game. And I think they pulled it off. So that's a good one.
Well, I've already seen that content, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the response to it, because I think it was pretty good stuff. As for me, well, I've been with Rison this week.
Oh, yeah. Which is you can see the horizon.
Yes. I don't know what to say about that other than AMD have done a really good job, and still Intel for gaming for my money. But we're going to ship out some of the third gen Rison parts to Alex, who will be doing the long-term testing on that. And based on what I've seen gen on gen, comparing the second gen to the third gen, I think he's going to be quite happy, bearing in mind that he's still on the first gen. So yeah, that's pretty good. I believe next week, actually, the embargo is up for the RTX 2080 Super, which not sure if I can say whether I've got it or not, but we will have a review for the 23rd, hopefully. So yes, that's going to be really interesting stuff, the kind of final furlong of the Super saga. And beyond that, huge backlog.
This is exciting. I got a big shipment of games in. Here's a pic. Look at this. I buy weird stuff. I finally got a complete in-box, mint condition copy of Naughty Dog's Way of the Warrior.
Wow.
Not their first game, not even close, but this is it's a special game.
Right.
and now it's mine.
I'll tell you what's mine is this special invitation to NVIDIA's Quake 2 RTX launch that they did this week in London. Don't really usually talk much about PR bumps, but this is really quite interesting. It's just like a reimagining, a physical reimagining of the original Quake 2 retail product, but here it is in RTX. I know you've been enviously eyeing that.
Yes, I would like to put that next to my actual copy of Quake 2.
Okay, well look, let's move on to the matter in hand, and it's kind of a topic that we've been discussing internally for months now, which is simply PlayStation 4 Pro. I think it's time to reappraise it, not as we originally did as a 4K machine, but as a 1080p machine. Because I think developers are really pushing the PlayStation hardware so hard now that you kind of need extra overhead. And time again, we're actually seeing that if you're gaming at 1080p, as opposed to 4K, having a PS4 Pro is a big advantage. And I guess the thing that kind of brought it back to my mind was your recent Bloodstained coverage.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, and it's something I've really noticed this year. A lot of PS4 Pro games aren't coming anywhere near hitting 4K, whereas base PS4 games now are more often falling below 1080p. Not all the time,
yeah,
but we're seeing more of that. So in a sense, the original PS4, you're just not getting as much native 1080p content anymore. Whereas with the Pro, pretty much everything is always going to be 1080p minimum, or you get downscaling from a higher resolution. And this is pretty interesting because unlike the Xbox, there isn't a universal solution for every game. You're not limited to say, okay, if you select, no matter what you select on Xbox, it's always going to render it at the Scorpio resolution, if you will,
yeah,
right? Whereas on the Pro, we know changing settings around can change the resolution and the performance impact that the resolution has on the game. And so in a way, you're just kind of getting, oftentimes the PS4 Pro offers the best performing version of any single game, just because of the fact that you can run it at 1080p. Like, one example I want to give real quick, Red Faction Guerrilla, I tested recently. You remember that one?
Yeah, sure. I played it on Xbox and it was really impressive, but it's smoother still on the Pro, isn't it? Lower resolution, but...
Yes and no. This is what really hits the topic home for me. If you play it at 1080p, it's the smoothest of all the console versions. But if you play it at native 4K, which is an option, the frame rate is so low that it rivals Lichdom Battle Mage in its original form. I mean, we're talking like low teens here. It gets terrible. So this is a case where it's both the best and the worst performing version, depending on your resolution choice.
But if you've got your PS4 Pro set to 1080p at the front end, then you're going to get the best performing version of that game.
Correct.
Wow, that is quite interesting, isn't it? But I guess the big question is, if you've already got a standard PlayStation 4, is it a big upgrade to move over to the Pro?
So this is actually something I've seen a lot of people asking about this at various stores and just people I've met saying, hey, I've only got a 1080p TV, why would I get the Pro? And in a sense, I think that if you have a 1080p, it almost makes more sense to get the Pro than anything else. Just for the fact that the games are they do almost universally run better on the PS4 Pro, and the Pro seems to be the target on the PlayStation side more often than not.
Wow.
So yeah, I do think 1080p owners are almost getting a better experience. If you have a 4K TV and you're buying multi-platform games, then I'd say in most cases the Xbox One X is going to be the choice for that.
Sure.
Because you are getting high resolution games on average. Most of them are at or relatively close to 4K. I'd say that's very common on the X, whereas on the Pro it isn't that common, and as we said, you often sacrifice performance. So in that sense, if you're playing at 1080p, you're probably getting the best performance.
Yeah, and I think we ought to talk about a few other games where playing at 1080p on the Pro makes a huge difference. Another one you did recently was Rage 2.
Yes!
Which is like a night and day difference. 30 frames per second on base, 60 frames per second on the enhanced machine. And it's not a perfect 60, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good one. It is very close to being a stable 60 most of the time on the Pro versus just 30 on the base PS4. It's a night and day difference there. It looks basically the same, but the difference in performance is significant.
Yeah, and another one which springs to mind, Dangerous Driving, brilliant game.
Oh yeah.
Brilliant game, but I can't really consider the base consoles for that one because, well, you know, if you're going to do a spiritual successor to Burnout's always been a 60 hertz game, and you know, again, another night and day difference by playing that brilliant game on PS4 Pro as opposed to the base unit.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is I just saw a tweet from someone suggesting that they've patched the game on base PS4 to fix the bad frame pacing.
Oh, really? Oh.
So I need to check this, but even if they do fix that, you're still looking at 30 FPS versus 60. So it's kind of a night and day difference. Before it was like 30 FPS with bad frame pacing versus 60. Why would you ever play the base version? But if they fix that, then at least it's a little more reasonable, but still ultimately not really, it's not the way you want to play a game like that.
Yeah.
Another one that really sticks out to me though that I want to mention as a good example is Ace Combat 7.
Oh, right, of course.
Which was one of the first games I covered this year. And it still sticks with me, and I think it might just end up on taking one of the spots on my annual Game of the Year list at the end of this year.
Really?
Because I really like that game, and I keep thinking about it. But if you played it on the base system, the experience was a lot less, I guess you could say, stable. This is kind of the recurring theme here, right? You're either getting a lower maximum frame rate or you're just getting significantly more slowdown, and in that case, it was okay, but it just wasn't that stable. Whereas on the Pro, pretty much the entire game, with a few minor exceptions, was locked at 60 frames per second, which is how it was at least on the PlayStation 2 versions of those games.
I think there was a resolution advantage as well on Ace Combat 7, is that right? Or is my mind playing tricks?
I would need to go back and check on that to be sure.
That's an Unreal Engine 4 game, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so sticking with that theme, we have, of course, Tekken 7 and Soul Calibur 6, I believe.
Yeah.
Again, those were 1080p on the Pro, lower resolution, and I think slightly pared back effects on the base PlayStation 4 there. So again, I think the big difference is definitely when you have those big frame rate jumps or better stability and performance. But I still think that those games are just going to be better played on the Pro than they are on the base unit.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much the theme here that we've been setting, is it's either better performance, better image quality, or both.
Yeah.
And yeah, native 1080p still looks really good on a 1080p screen.
Sure.
I mean, it looks fine on a 4K screen as well, but obviously you have to deal with upscaling at that point. Unless you have some way to scale that to 4K, or you're using one of Panasonic's OLED TVs, which do actually offer a nearest neighbor scale.
Oh, really?
So you get the really sharp 1080p image, but I think they're one of the only brands to offer that feature.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just quickly, another game that springs to mind. I mean, we could be here all day, really, but...
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Just Cause 4 really pushes the base PlayStation 4 hard. I haven't played it since they patched in checkerboard rendering, but when I played it at launch, PS4 could go down to 720p. The Pro bottomed out at 1080p, and it was smoother to boot. And in fact, I seem to recall at the time it was actually, again, the smoothest version of the game. Although the Xbox One X version really had a huge resolution upgrade. Bottom line, the Pro, 1080p, that 30 FPS line there, I couldn't really shift it. So yeah, another game there. Also, I think we should be talking about maybe the first party games, because I think there are some instances where the base unit still has, you know, really good performance and looks awesome. Spider-Man, I think, is a great game. But even there are obviously resolution advantages on the Pro and possibly slightly better stability. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I think that's actually the case. It was slightly better. Same with Days Gone.
Yeah.
Same with games like Horizon. You know.
Yeah, Horizon's actually really interesting because it had the 4K checkerboard mode, which you could downscale to 1080p, but it also had, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was a stability mode where they basically ramped up the native resolution as far as they could go without any performance drops. I think it was 1365p. I might be wrong on that, but it's definitely in that area.
It was a strange resolution choice actually, but it was above 1080p.
Yeah.
So again, you downscale from there, you're getting better image quality. Actually, I think we should probably talk about checkerboard rendering in this instance and what that means on a 1080p screen.
Well, this is interesting, isn't it? Because when I was talking to Microsoft about the Xbox One X, one of the engineers from the Advanced Technology Group says that, you know, these enhanced machines, they're great for 1080p screens because, you know, you're getting, in theory, a maximum of 4 times super sampling. And, you know, he never considered a day where they would be spending that much GPU resources on anti-aliasing, but that's what's happened with this need to support 4K screens. But with checkerboarding, we have an interesting situation in that it's almost like the image is first of all being upscaled and then it's being downscaled again. But I think by and large, obviously it varies on a game-by-game basis, but the image tends to hold up on a 4K screen. And so when you're downscaling, it still looks pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I found that the games that support downscaled checkerboarding, or I guess you can still do it at the system level, the artifacts become rather difficult to see on the 1080p screen. So you're still getting the impression of a much higher native resolution, basically super sampling. So in that sense, it really does make a difference. I seem to recall like Destiny 2, for instance, looking really nice on a 1080p screen.
Yeah.
I was at somebody's place and they were playing some Destiny and on a 1080p plasma, and was just surprised at how clean it looks running on the Pro at that resolution. Whereas, you know, when you play it on a 4K screen, it's a decent implementation, but it is a little bit soft, I think, on the Pro. So that does kind of help clean up things. It also works with games that use strong temporal anti-aliasing.
Right.
Where sometimes, you know, I like TAA. It does clean up a lot of the motion artifacts, but it can often appear rather soft. And downscaling, so if you have a higher resolution with TAA, you downscale to 1080p, it does sort of, it gives you the impression of a slightly sharper image just because there's fewer pixels within the screen. So it does kind of, you still get that effect. So it appears sharper, but still very, very clean, if you will.
Yeah, and temporal stability obviously is off the scale, I guess, with both downsampling and temporal supersampling as well. Yeah, so I think one thing I do want to touch on quickly though is the system level supersampling. So, you know, obviously the big complaint we had back in the day, and I still think it's a really poor idea, is this notion of locking particular performance profiles and resolution profiles to a front-end selection on the Pro, either 1080p or 2160p. It just doesn't seem right to me to, you know, essentially rely on the user reading Digital Foundry to find out about the difference or trying it themselves. It just seems a bit odd to me. But Sony did add a feature called, obviously, the super sampling feature, which allows you to essentially tell the game that you've got a 4K screen, even though you've got a 1080p screen, and then it does the system level downscaling for you. And from my perspective, I think it's nice that they added that feature, but what's kind of bothering me about it is that many games have double scaling now. So I think the classic example I saw was Red Dead Redemption 2, where the checkerboarding wasn't that great. So obviously it's expanding from 1920 by 2160 to 3840 by 2160, and then it's downscaling it back to 1920 by 1080. And it kind of looks really soft. Notice the same thing also on Metal Gear Solid 5 when they did the Pro patch for that. That's a native 1440p game. And again, you know, it gets blown up to 4K, but then, you know, obviously the system level supersampling doesn't know it's been upscaled and then downscales it. So you get this sort of, it's kind of more blurry than it should be. But I guess, you know, they can't actually access the game code to make the appropriate changes. So we're left with the double scaling there. I was kind of hoping that once that feature was in place, that guidance would be sent out to developers to actually support downscaling natively in the game. But we still get titles where that isn't the case.
Yeah, so I thought about this, and one of the I don't think Sony would implement this, but this really could be solved as sort of a sharpness slider,
Right.
kind of like on NVIDIA graphics cards when you use their built-in downsampling features.
Right.
You can change how strongly the image is filtered to your preference, basically. I think just the way that they filter the image does produce a rather blurry, soft image when using that option. Which is why I notice when we look at games, a lot of people are still asking, hey, does the game itself do downscaling or is it system level only? And people care because it does impact the image. And in fact, I found that it's most noticeable on HUD elements,
Yeah.
which become very soft when using the downscaling feature versus what you would natively get from the game normally.
Okay, so I don't think we have a perfect solution here to this two-mode video output business here, but fundamentally I can't help but think that if you really want the best 1080p gaming from your PlayStation library, we've reached the point now where Pro is the best place to be. I don't know what you think about that, John.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the Pro and the X, in fact, are both better for 1080p. I just think that the X also works really well as a 4K console, where the Pro a little bit less so.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, with the Xbox One X, you've got an even wider delta between the base machine, the S, and the enhanced machine, the X. But, you know, I think as you said earlier, the X is doing a pretty bang-up job on accommodating 4K screens pretty nicely. But again, you know, that all translates back to decent 1080p performance, I guess. But bottom line is that the Pro kind of seems to have evolved into a sweet spot where it's just a really good companion to a full HD screen.
Absolutely, I would agree. And I think that's, you know, that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So, before we sign off here, do you have any plans for next week that you'd like to share with the audience?
Sure. Well, my good friend Audie, from who I was often in our videos during E3, he is coming over to visit again, and we are going to film more DF Retro content.
Ah, nice.
And possibly maybe he'll be a guest on the Direct next week. We'll see. That could be fun, actually. You know, mix things up, you know, get some other discussion in here. So yeah, we're gonna have that to look forward to. Yeah, I gotta see what else is getting released and see if there's anything we should be tackling next week. But yeah, I'll probably do that. And
I think Wolfenstein Youngblood is coming pretty soon. Consoles and PC.
is it? Yeah, that's right. It's coming out soon. The console version, console analysis from my perspective probably won't be the most exciting. Since I expect it'll be very similar to Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, but I'm very curious to see what the ray tracing stuff is on the PC side. That is what's exciting to me. And I guess Alex will be looking at that and drooling all over it, and you know, maybe he'll have that third gen Rison at some point soon.
Well, of course, Alex will be looking at Wolfenstein.
Oh yeah, Wolfenstein.
And as for me, well, obviously we've got the 2080 Super next week, which I'm going to be taking a look at. And beyond that, I've been doing some experiments kind of related to next-gen consoles that producing some fascinating results. Can't wait to share those. It's going to require a bit of work though, so I do ask for your patience there. Beyond that, Rison.
Yeah, I hope you've recovered from that marathon of Rison testing.
Yeah. Ah, dear.
CPU testing is so fun, isn't it?
Yeah, that is indeed intense. But, you know, we've got the Ryzen 5 to look at. Always been an awesome price versus performance contender. And I'm still really fascinated by the 12-core 3900X. We do have that here. Fascinated to see performance of that in gaming, because obviously the multi-threaded task side of things is just going to be immense on that. But can it hold up in gaming? I can't wait to find out.
Oh, that's the Postman. Hold on. You can go ahead and, well, I'll be right back. Let me see what this is about.
Got to admit, when we first sat down to film this, I kind of wasn't expecting the DF Direct to be hijacked by John's Postman, but let's go with it.
Oh, this could be funny part of the, what? Why did he ring? Yeah. That's a... Okay, number 2. Yeah. Dankeschön. Cheers. Hold on, I'm coming back to the camera.
I'm all for special guests on Digital Foundry Direct, by the way. If you're interested in taking part, Postman are welcome too.
So, this just in, I just got hijacked by the Postman, as you say. So the end of our Digital Foundry Direct was interrupted. What have we got here? Let's do a little unboxing on camera, just to see what we have in here.
Come on, let's go for it. I mean, this is taking scheduled content in a brand new direction. I kind of think I like it.
We need some really classy music for this. All right, so the first thing that I have here is, in fact, a nice complete in-box copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time for the Super Famicom. Look at that. I'm just gonna, this is a great game, and you know, I haven't had a boxed version, so there's that. Now I'm gonna place that over here on the shelf next to R-Type 3 and Rockman and Forte. So, what's this next box then? Oh, this one is sealed a little bit more. What can I use to open that? I know. Alfred Chicken for the Game Boy. This has a sharp enough edge. I'm gonna try to open this box using Alfred Chicken, because that's about all he's good for. Do you know Alfred Chicken?
Yeah, I know Alfred Chicken. I'm just trying to sort of picture the focus group that came up with this particular name.
Right? Well, this is working a little bit. I wouldn't do this with any other game except for Alfred Chicken. Sorry, Alfred Chicken fans. This is...
Got to admit, John, I'm not particularly looking forward to the massive Alfred Chicken backlash that this is going to produce.
See, we haven't done a lot of unboxing videos, right? So this is kind of like training, if you will.
Well, you know, I'm quite liking the idea of a new series, unboxing with Alfred Chicken. Could be YouTube gold.
Unbox. I agree. That's about what he's the best for. If anybody likes Alfred Chicken, please let me know in the comments, because I've been trying to understand what's up with that. See, now I'm literally just tearing through the box just to get it undone quickly. I don't really feel like dealing with this. So.
Come on, John, I'm on tenterhooks here. Let's go for it.
Oh wait, we're almost in. Is it going to be exciting? I think it's a new game rather than a retro game. But what's it going to be? Oh, we're in. It is Cyveriar Delta for Nintendo Switch. This is a follow-up to a series that was on some classic systems. Cyveriar 2 on Dreamcast. There was a PS2 port, I think. But yeah, I was happy to have a real physical copy of this. Here it is. So we got this double unboxing here. Turtles in Time. Cyveriar Delta. There we go. This is the first official DF Direct unboxing. So I hope you guys enjoyed that completely random thing.
I feel honored. I kind of think we all do.
So yes. But I think that will probably officially wrap it up now.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, look, enough of this nonsense. If you did enjoy the content, please do like and subscribe. Yes, we're wrapping up now. And of course, ring the bell for instant notifications whenever a new Digital Foundry drops. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. And yes, if you really like the work that John, myself, Alex and Tom do, please do consider supporting us via the Digital Foundry Patreon. Really makes a big difference. But yeah, we're going to wrap this one up for now. Hopefully John's Postman will be available next week, but who knows. Anyway, that's all from us for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.